And I want to start off by thanking as Tim said, the team here. I think one, it's really great to be here on virtually and be doing the real deal. It's been really great to have these discussions as a business community, and I think it's really reflective of the environment that I work in. I think the environment that we all work in is to hear these different facets of things that are going on within our communities and within the region, within the state. And I want to introduce our land management program. So the Kenai Peninsula Borough is not only the county level of government, but it's also a landowner. The borough has 200 square miles of land that we manage. We actually have more neighbors than the 2 million acre Kenai National Wildlife Refuge. We get to be a part of a lot of different projects. Get to work with many folks that are in this room and folks that folks in this room work with. And we work with oil and gas. We've worked with Hillcorp and Harvest and Marathon and Exxon and Aurora and Coconut Energy and Buccaneer and AIX and Jim White, if anybody remembers Jim White. We work with Emerging Energy. We work with the HEA with their new hydro project in Moose Pass, and we're working on emerging solar with the emerging solar industry. Thank you, Jen, for being here. We were working with infrastructure, communications. We got to be part of some broadband expansion with the CARES Act, and we're involved with the highway project, that $360 million highway project in Cooper Landing. Fishing, the borough actually manages 36 miles of coastline, so we've got a lot of set net friends that industry and the borough along the beaches of the Cookin, that we have an important interface there, and we're definitely happy to be in that position and work with so many different industries. Agriculture is one that I know is really has caught a lot of interest, and we spoke on this. I think it was the 2019 Economic Development Forum, and happy to be back here again. Since that time, we've set some rates. So the Kenai Peninsula Borough, within our code, we modified our land code to set agricultural rates for leases on agricultural land to create some predictability and profitability within agriculture moving forward, where borough lands get to be part of that picture. We actually entered into our first agricultural lease in I think it's been a long time since the borough entered into ag lease. We entered into one of those, and we're looking to develop a leasing structure that maybe looks a little bit more like a set net permit in the way that it's framed. So something new there, and we're looking forward to doing agricultural land sales, and doing that by setting up a zoning framework for agricultural reserve lands, and then actually doing land sales into a zoning framework like that, so that we can achieve those objectives. Land sales, we actually had our biggest land sale year this last year. We were able to connect with some business, some growing businesses within our land sale this last year, and so we had successes not only in what it brought to the borough, but also what it's going to mean in those cases for business expansion. Also, something I want to share, because I think this is important to all of us, is we get to work with our GIS unit at the Kenai Peninsula Borough, and they brought forward a new initiative to update our imagery. And so all around the Kenai Peninsula Borough, on our imagery viewer services, the parcel viewer, as many people know, you're going to see brand new imagery from 2020, 2021, and going forward. We're actually going to have imagery covering all areas of the borough on at least a 5-year cycle. And so these mariculture sites that are in Kachemak Bay, you'll be able to see those blue buoys hanging out there in high resolution imagery right from your desktop. What's new and exciting? The big thing that we have going on in land management is we're restructuring, or maybe we're structuring for the first time. The borough is really a young organization. When you think about a local government that's only a 50-year-old organization, we're really young and doing things for the first time. We're restructuring. One of the things we did here within the last couple of years was we established a land trust investment fund so that land revenues get invested for the long term, something kind of like the permanent fund. We're already seeing that be very successful. We're looking to manage that towards a $100 million fund over the next generation. And it will have many legacy benefits to the borough, to its taxpayers, and provide a lot of fiscal advantages. But beyond that, we're working on our inventory, as Tim mentioned, getting our inventory on lots of things, both for the Kenai Peninsula Borough, getting our arms around 200 square miles of land. We're rewriting our land code so that we have a good operating framework within the law structure of the borough for how we manage borough lands. And ultimately, we're working towards writing for the first time a land plan. And I do want to give a shout out to the City of Kenai here on not only thanks for hosting us here today, but when it comes to borough land management, I have many times looked to the City of Kenai for what they've done. When I talk about the Land Trust Investment Fund, the City of Kenai had established an airport fund some time ago, and much of what we did was modeled after that. And as we go forward with initiative to set forward a land plan, the City of Kenai just recently brought forward a land plan, which is an incredible structure to get your arms around what you have and put decisions put a decision-making framework in the hands of decision makers. It's a monumental task that the city has done, and we're looking forward to doing something similar. And really, what it does is it's intended to put the borough in a position to be responsive, put the borough in a position of being an active land manager, and putting the borough in a position of being responsive to changes within our business environment. I want to take the rest of the time here, and I want to introduce Dakota Truitt, who came and joined our team. Borough Land Management is a small team. There's 5 of us. We have lots of different things that we're working on. Dakota's working on something that's very important on our landscape right now, and she's going to talk to us about spruce bark beetle and some forestry actions that we're looking forward to. Thank you, Dakota.
Hi, I am Dakota Truitt. I'm a land management agent, new to the borough in September, but I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having us. I'm here to speak to utilizing the wood of our spruce bark beetle impacted forests. My purpose in presenting to you is to gain support for our forest management projects as we are embarking upon them. I want to introduce the action we're taking to address the spruce bark beetle issue, recognize the value of our forests, and notify the community of our upcoming actions. We are in the midst of a forest health epidemic. Those boundless spruce forests aren't so boundless. And if you live in South Central Alaska, you're probably familiar with spruce bark beetle or have been personally impacted by it. The situation at hand is that we are experiencing a major forest disturbance in what is described as a spruce stand collapse, and that has been severe and far-ranging. Action must be taken to protect our communities from this apparent risk and to preserve the health of our forests. So selective timber harvest has been identified as the most appropriate tool for this, which is the removal of all dead and dying spruce or susceptible spruce down to a 5-inch DBH, and that's small, it's about that big. The borough does not currently have a spruce bark beetle mitigation organization, forestry program, or the ability to conduct timber sales. But we recognize the need to take this action, so what we're proposing is a mass timber sale project that serves the purpose of addressing this. Our short-term goals are to seek authorization to conduct timber sales, to initiate this active forest management, and utilize our local forestry labor force in doing so. Our long-term goals are to develop a comprehensive forest management plan, participate in the cross-boundary management that all of our neighbors are doing right now, develop a mandatory reforestation protocol with local requirements, and this will all contribute to the development of legacy forestry infrastructure supported by a sustainable market. We'll achieve these goals by utilizing the valuable timber resource that is rapidly deteriorating right now, reducing the potential cost to borough residents, and utilizing timber sales as the land management tool to improve quality of land. Our secondary objectives, which are vital but secondary because they'll be achieved by way of focusing on our primary objectives, are to improve fire resiliency, protect our infrastructure, improve forest health, match our neighboring public land managers' efforts, maintain access for residents to all borough land, and improve wildlife habitat quality. So far, more than 150,000 acres have been identified as highly infested by spruce bark beetle on the Kenai Peninsula. The map above, you kind of can't see, but areas in red are what we've remotely identified on borough-owned and managed land as being high concern because of high infestation rates around some of the Kenai Peninsula's urban centers. The spruce volume on this land is currently averaging about 500 to 1,000 board feet per acre of merchantable value. So a little jargony, a board foot is just a forestry metric expressing volume, 1 inch by 12 inch by 12 inch. We can convert that to cords, which everyone may be more familiar with, and again, just expressing volume, 4 feet by 4 feet by 8 feet of wood. And merchantable wood is defined as saw logs. So anything we can use to make lumber has to be high quality, large diameter, as opposed to fuel wood, which we're just salvaging any value on that landscape and using it to heat homes. The Kenai Peninsula hasn't been completely assessed since 1986. So this preliminary data does indicate, though, that there are areas we can manage for forest products and salvage. So not included in those merchantable spruce volumes are that fuel wood component. That's where most of the volume and value is coming from right now. So half to 1 cord of merchantable value on the landscape is 6 to 20 cords of fuel wood on the landscape. And that's 10 to 20 tons of wood biomass per acre. Significant. We're taking that volume and we're scaling it up to the 21,000 acres. It comes out to be 10.5 million to 21 million board feet of merchantable volume. That's 10,000 to 21,000 cords of wood. That's only a fraction of what the total wood biomass is on the landscape. It's just the merchantable volume, not including the fuel wood. But if you value that, it's about $400,000 to $800,000 of timber being lost to spruce bark beetle, and that's value to the landowner. That's not even considering that value in the marketplace, which is significantly increased. There's 3 to 5 years of opportunity to salvage this wood once infestation has occurred, and any merchantable value of forest products are lost. So there's no current or accurate appraisals of South Central Alaskan timber available. The most recent was from December of 2020, when spruce saw logs were $36.90 a cord, and spruce fuel wood was $25.60 a cord. But today our neighboring land managers are selling that wood for $5 to $10 a cord, and that's just to get the treatment that's needed onto the landscape. It's a 86.5% difference in value that's being lost, or the complete loss of a timber value by not harvesting at all. So even at these degraded qualities, there's still profit potential into the timber industry if sold at the right price. $5 a cord on the landscape to the landowner is $250 a cord in the marketplace to the manufacturer. And ultimately that profit margin still has enough incentive at scale to keep people in the timber industry. What's an asset now will be a liability later. The longer we wait to salvage harvest this wood, the less options we have, and the higher incurred cost there's going to be to treat this collapsed forest stand. We lose the ability to conduct timber sales as any value has diminished, and we end up having to utilize service contracts, which is paying a contractor to remove the wood. Realistically, some of our forested land will be appropriate for timber sales, and some will be too far gone and will require these service contracts. But I have been quoted anywhere from $450 to $2,000 an acre for service contract treatment, and that's a value of $9 million to $42 million if you're scaling it to the 21,000 acres. The longer we wait to take action, the more acreage and risk will perpetually compound, and we really don't want our forests to look like this, which is a collapsed forest stand, converted to grassland, all potential value lost. liability isn't just financial. We're allowing our communities and landscape to face substantial risk, primarily in the form of fire. We risk losing infrastructure, loss of life, loss of forest resources, and ultimately loss of industry. By removing the wood from the landscape, we can directly suppress that fire risk and severity. The photo shown here is of the 2019 Swan Lake fire. It's just an example of the tangible and growing risk that we are faced with. And the cost of wildland fire is steep. It's steep both financially and ecologically. So the 2019 Swan Lake fire burned over 167,000 acres, and that consumed 1.7 million tons of wood. The cost of just the fire response alone was $46 million, and that's not including the value of the timber resources that were lost. Same with the 2014 Funny River fire, 200,000 acres burned, 2 million tons of wood consumed, and $6 million in fire response costs. So as you can see, the cost of producing these timber sales and capitalizing on the available forest products is less than the cost of the service contracts to treat our affected stands to mitigate risk, which is still less than the cost of this fire response potential infrastructure loss. Or alternatively, taking no action and leaving a collapsed forest ecosystem for the next generations to deal with. By taking action towards forest management, we're building a stream of economic opportunities in the form of jobs due to this additional resource utilization, which will result in market expansion and industry development. This development will allow us as land managers to develop comprehensive forest management plans to sustainably manage our resources, and that feeds timber back into these industry and keeps it viable. There are also federal funding opportunities available to stimulate these projects. We had submitted a $35 million spruce bark beetle response funding request, and it wasn't directly funded, but we're able to take pieces of those and now apply it to the new Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And we'll be actively pursuing those funds to support our mitigation efforts and reforestation efforts. The Kenai Peninsula Borough has a history of providing these resources to help alleviate the burden of this type of ecosystem disturbance. This channels federal relief and forestry grant funding into the Alaskan economy and benefits our forest management across the landscape, ultimately benefiting all of our communities. Our next steps will be to continue with this public engagement throughout the spring. We're hoping to gain authorization to do timber sales by the summer, while simultaneously hiring a forester to lead the program. We want to release our first timber sales at the end of this year, beginning of next year, and in the meantime, identifying and pursuing that funding on an ongoing basis. Action is being mirrored across all public land, and the need for these types of projects is evident. We just are coming out with our community wildfire protection plans, and they've prioritized this type of work. So we're seeing that in all these types of fuel breaks that have been going up around our communities to protect the infrastructure that we have. It's the borough's responsibility to participate in this management and attempt to address this issue. So this is our attempt in recognizing the value of our forest and planning for the coming cost of this ecosystem disturbance. As Marcus has said, anything we can measure, we can manage, and we're moving in that direction. Thank you.